Talk to me. WSRadio.com.
The San Diego Council on Literacy brings you Literacy for All with your host, Jose Cruz.
Welcome to the show. I'm Jose Cruz from the San Diego Council on Literacy. You're listening to the Literacy for All radio show on WS Radio. Our guest for the first two segments is someone from the Juvenile Court Book Club. She is the president, Jodi Cleesattle. Am I saying that right, Jodi?
Yes, Cleesattle.
Cleesattle, very good. Thank you for joining us today. So glad to have you. How's your schedule these days? So it's a busy time for folks.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be on.
And so let me ask you what the Juvenile Court Book Club does and how you became engaged in it.
Sure. So Juvenile Court Book Club is an all-volunteer nonprofit, and we provide monthly book clubs for teens who are incarcerated in San Diego's juvenile detention facilities. So usually sort of junior high school age kids. We also provide tutoring, and our goal is to help the teens improve their literacy and hopefully improve their educational outcomes by reading a variety of books with our volunteers, discussing them, seeing more of the world through books, seeing what's out there, maybe giving them some ideas for things they could do in their futures, once they get back on the right track.
Wonderful. So I want to ask you, because it's been a while since I've had the opportunity to sit in, but is it mostly the girls from the rehabilitation facility who are participating in the book club?
We have kids, the girls at the Girls Rehabilitation Facility, which is now called Urban Camp. We also have girls and boys in Juvenile Hall, which is the slightly higher, level of detention. They're on the same campus, but different facilities. There's 2 units, one girls' unit and one boys' unit.
And so you have what we call Juvenile Hall here in San Diego County, but you have another location, East County Detention Facility. Is that correct?
Well, we used to have a program at Otay Mesa Detention Facility for older boys, but that we haven't operated that program in a little while. We coordinate with the teachers, and sometimes we have teachers that don't feel like they can work it into their curriculum and their schedule, and so that one we went ahead and stopped doing the program out there.
And so with the book club, is it primarily voluntary? Do you promote it? And some of let's call them detainees, unless you have another name that I can be using. They volunteer to be in the club.
For I believe all of our groups now, it's part of their classwork. Well, for the girls, I believe it's part of their classwork. So, for example, in Girls Rehabilitation Facility, the 2 teachers, they work with us in the selection of books, and they have the kids read the books as part of their assignments. They do, book reports, art projects related to the books, things like that. And so it's also part of their curriculum, and then they have the book club sessions with our volunteers. I believe with the boys in Juvenile Hall, it's a little bit more voluntary. They all typically read the book, but I don't know if they have the same. I don't know that if it's worked into their curriculum the same way. Gotcha. I don't know that they necessarily have the same kind of assignments related to the book.
Gotcha. Well, let me ask about the books that are being read. Typically, a book club is going to be a book that is selected, and then everybody reads it, and they have a conversation about the book in the process of reading it, or even having finished reading it. Is that how this club works?
That's exactly right. Just like it would for, groups of friends in the outside world, except without the wine. We are allowed to provide snacks, and so the kids always look forward to getting, cookies or brownies or, candy during our book club sessions.
Wonderful. And we'll ask later on how people can support the work that you're doing with this population of students. But it must cost some money to, let's say, invest in multiple copies of a book that you've selected. Is that accurate?
It does. We apply for grants and we take donations, monetary donations, and then we also have a relationship with the county library system, where they allow us to use their volume discount to purchase books from publishers at a discount price. And so we come up with a reading list for the year, and then we order the books either direct from the publisher through that process. Sometimes if it's a book that's not available that way, we may have to order it on Amazon or something. But yeah, that's where our budget goes, is to buying the books so that each kid, each teen, gets their own copy of the book, which they get to keep, take home with them. And we also buy books for the class libraries and for free reading, so that the students, when it's on their own time, that they have a good selection of books to read. And we have the teachers give us suggestions for those as well. Sometimes the students are, really interested in a particular author or a particular genre, and they'll give us wish lists, and we buy those books for them. And that's pretty much the only place we spend our money. We don't, we don't have any paid staff. Mm-hmm. We just buy books.
Mm-hmm. Now, I want to come back to that too, but also a really important topic, something that we've discussed a number of times on this show, relating to creating access to a reading material that's going to be appealing to a young population that is often disengaged from reading. It's like, you have to give them things that are relevant to them. And sometimes that means materials that are a little bit edgy. How do you decide, especially given if they're putting in orders, hey, we want to read this book, how do you decide what books the young people are reading?
We have a committee that pre-reads a lot of potential, titles, and like I said, some of the teachers are involved as well, and they give suggestions. We also look at, the literary lists and things for good potential ideas for books, and our committee brainstorms ideas. We do have some guidelines. They read nonfiction, and there's more of that. They read more nonfiction titles than in the past because of curriculum requirements. Mm-hmm. But we make those fun nonfiction. So, for example, The Immortal Life of Henrietta Lacks, or the book about the women that worked for NASA, and I can't think of the name of the movie now in the book.
Hidden Figures?
Yes, Hidden Figures. Mm-hmm. So books like that are engaging nonfiction books. They read Shakespeare. Every year they read a Shakespeare selection. They read poetry, including bilingual poetry. And then in terms of titles, it's mostly current contemporary fiction, and it's not all young adult. In fact, most of it's not young adult fiction. But we try to make sure there's a lot of diversity, so that we have titles that include African American lead characters and Asian characters and Latinx characters, and so that there's sort of a variety of experiences and cultures represented in what they read. We read some classics, but more of sort of contemporary and modern literature. But there's a wide variety, and like I said, it's not just kid stuff. It's serious, good contemporary fiction.
Very good. And I know it has to be a little bit tricky, given a number of things that are out there. Tell us, just so we can picture better what takes place, how often the club meets, and how many students might be in a reading circle.
So we meet monthly, and they get the summer off because that's when they get their break from school as well. But we meet monthly, and for girls' rehabilitation facility, we meet in 2 sessions. So that's twice. Usually it's the same week or the 2 weeks in a row, but it's 2 different groups. Mm-hmm. And then there's one group for girls' juvenile hall and one group for boys' juvenile hall. The number of students can vary. In the last couple of years, the population in the juvenile detention facilities has gone down, which is great because more kids are not being detained.
It's a good sign, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, and or they're going to diversion programs and things like that. Yeah. So some of the groups, it may be only 10 students, or but it used to be sort of as many as 20. I think I've been volunteering for 7 years, and before me, I think there were times when it was even larger, but typically between 10 and 20.
Gotcha. And, Judy, I'm going to cut you off just because we're going to go to break right now. But we'll be back in a couple of minutes. We're talking to Jodi Cleesattle. She is the president of the Juvenile Court Book Club. You're listening to the Literacy for All radio show on WS Radio, the worldwide leader in Internet talk.
Can you help a newborn baby in need? Sometimes the blessing of birth becomes complicated and perilous. Miracle Babies is there to help. Miracle Babies helps moms and dads give their all to their struggling little baby, but still need more. When you give to Miracle Babies, you help them give more. More skin-to-skin care, breast milk, and love. Go to miraclebabies.org and give right now. Be their miracle.
Looking to be a successful entrepreneur? The virtual assistant industry continues to be a top choice for those looking to start their own business. The problem can be how to become a virtual assistant. Many turn to the Bible of the VA industry, the book Virtual Assistant the Series, and it's the perfect guide for office managers, executive assistants, and other administrative professionals looking to make the transition from employee to successful business owner. Go to vatheseries.com to get your copy today.
Small businesses are the lifeblood of America's economy. Every Thursday, SBA Radio interviews industry professionals and is dedicated to provide small businesses with timely insights and innovations. Visit www.sbaradio.us for details.
Homeless veterans and their families are suffering and need our support, but many won't ask or don't know that help is within reach. Veterans Community Services is here to help. Amazingly, about 35% of the homeless in our neighborhoods are veterans with families. Low-income veterans or their friends are encouraged to contact Veterans Community Services and reach out for help with housing and other services. Call now, 800-974-9909.
I raised $8,000 to build schools for South African children. After realizing how many people go hungry in San Diego, I now volunteer at a food pantry.
I'm spending the next year doing volunteer projects across 3 countries and helping in ways they designate to be the most helpful.
The WorldLink program at the Joan B. Kroc Institute for Peace and Justice recognizes the potential of youth as agents of social change. Learn how you can help youth become a generation of leaders in action at peace.sandiego.edu.
Can you imagine a world without children? A world where children don't play, or dream, or imagine.
At St. Jude Children's Research Hospital, we're working every day to find cures for diseases that strike down children, because we can't imagine a world without children. Can you?
Finding cures, saving children. St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. To learn how you can help, log on to our website, stjude.org.
Donate cash, furniture, clothes, and other gently used household items to Father Joe's Villages and get a nice tax break in April. Every donation is tax deductible. Believe you can make a difference. Be Father Joe. Go to neighborhood.org or call 1-800-HOMELESS to donate today.
Talk to me. WSRadio.com.
The San Diego Council on Literacy brings you Literacy for All with your host, Jose Cruz.
Welcome back to the show. I'm Jose Cruz from the San Diego Council on Literacy. You're listening to the Literacy for All radio show on WS Radio. We're talking to Jodi Cleesattle. She is the president of the Juvenile Court Book Club. Jodi, how did you get started with Juvenile Court Book Club? What brought you to it?
So I am an attorney, and I belong to Lawyers Club of San Diego, which is the local women's bar association. Mm-hmm. And I had seen a notice seeking volunteers who were interested in working with Juvenile Court Book Club. And so I, contacted the organization. We have a website as well, and found out the process you need to apply to be a volunteer. Because we're in juvenile detention facilities, you do have to go through a background check if you want to be a regular volunteer. And so I applied and started volunteering and going every month. And eventually, not too long after, was invited to be on the board and have served on the board ever since.
Wonderful. Now, you mentioned that this is all volunteer, that your main expense, primary expense, almost your sole expense is books. Tell us about the team that's helping to coordinate the different parts of the Juvenile Court Book Club program.
Sure. So we have, I mentioned we have a pre-reading committee or a book selection committee that works on developing the reading list for each unit for the year, because the girls in juvenile hall and the girls rehabilitation facility read most of the same books, but not all, and the boys usually read somewhat different books. There's some overlap among all three. We also have people who work on applying for grants, so we get good funding, and we have regular officers who, a treasurer who handles our finances, and a secretary who handles, our minutes and things like that. And then, and we have just a number of longtime volunteers. Many are retired teachers. We have a lot of attorneys, and people just involved in literacy in general who, and we have site coordinators for each site, who coordinate with the volunteers, let them know what the book is for the month, ask for volunteers for that month. We usually have one or two, maybe three of the adult volunteers who appear at each session. And we have a volunteer coordinator who's been with us a long time, who shepherds the application process to get approved to be volunteers.
Very good.
To be able to come into the facilities.
Excellent. Oh, well, I had a couple of, I know we have about 8 minutes, which seems like a lot of time, but it isn't. So I'll cut to maybe more the literacy question. And that is, you're going to come across individuals in your teen population that might struggle reading a book that you select for the club. How do you deal with that?
Well, during our sessions, we ask to hear from everybody. And, we talk about the issues in the book. And, sometimes they talk about the fact that certain parts were hard for them, or maybe it was dense in places, or sometimes they reference vocabulary words that they weren't familiar with. But typically they've been able to read enough to understand the book, and they have great insights into the books. Mm-hmm. They relate them to their own experiences. They give their opinions on, what they think a particular character should have done, and at the end of each session, we have them rate the books on a scale of 1 to 10.
Yeah. And I'm sure their perspectives on the content is quite interesting. In fact, that's what I'm recollecting from my one visit the one time. And I like that they rate the books. But what I'm curious about is I think you mentioned that tutoring is also provided. So are you coming across a percentage of the young people who need help with basic reading?
There are some of the kids, their literacy or their reading levels aren't where they should be, and we have tutors that go in on certain days of the week and certain evenings of the week and help them with their homework, help them with reading skills. They can also help prepare them for the GED if the kids aren't in high school any longer, or prepare for the California high school exit exam. But yes, we do provide tutoring. I haven't participated in the tutoring part of the program, but we have some long-term tutors who work with them to help them make sure that their reading gets to a higher level and helps them with their other homework generally.
And you're also working with a fairly, when you look at youth correctional settings, this is a very transient population. That is, that the stay at the girls' rehabilitation facility or juvenile hall is not typically a long one. Is that correct?
That's right. And so sometimes we have, a situation where we'll be sitting in our circle and we'll ask what somebody thought of the book, and they're like, well, I just got here 2 days ago, so I've only read the first chapter. But we do have that. We have, it is a transient population, and, which is a good thing. We're happy when they move along and aren't there anymore.
Right. I'm with you on that. Let me ask, just along those lines, do you have a favorite story? Somebody who became an avid reader, somebody who came back and visited or wrote to you, or someone you bumped into who remembers their experience with the club?
Well, I guess some of my favorite stories are I've had a few girls say, they never read for fun before, and that this was the first time they ever read a book that they enjoyed just because they wanted to. And that always sticks with me, that, it gives me, hope that they have opened up a new world for themselves, by gaining the confidence that they can read different kinds of books and seeing that there's interesting stuff to be learned in different kinds of books and, interesting stories to hear.
And it's not all about school, textbooks, all those kinds of things. There's reading for fun. Can you think of a book that was probably one of the most popular with the club participants?
Gosh, I can't think of what was most popular. I know they actually got a really big kick out of, I think it was Antony and Cleopatra, a Shakespeare selection. Because they did their own, they put on their own play. They did a sort of a modern version of Antony and Cleopatra.
Right. Wow.
Right now in Girls Rehabilitation Facility, this month they're reading Pride, which is a sort of modern retelling of Pride and Prejudice. So I'll be interested to see how that goes. And by the way, right now we're doing virtual book club. We're not there in person.
Okay. And how is that working out? Does that mean that that the club participants are in front of a computer? They're doing things by Zoom. How is that being done?
So they're using a program called Flipgrid, and because their learning is still remote too. Their teachers are not there in person, or at least not. I think they might be there part of the time in person. So their teachers are providing them with, selected questions the way we would in book club, and our volunteers provide questions, discussion questions for them. And then what they do is the girls video themselves addressing. They select like 3 of the questions, and then they address them on Zoom, and they have on this video that then gets posted, and they can each see. We can all see everybody's video, what they've said about the book.
Okay, really good. So you've made your own adaptations. I think there's a whole lot of that going on right now. For our listeners, if they wanted to help out, is it just donating funding? Do you have a need for volunteers? What are things people can do to support what you're doing at Juvenile Court Book Club? Because it's really important. I mean, for some of the young people, it's an escape. It's a way out. From maybe things that they don't want to deal with, or things they don't want to. Therapy, I guess, is kind of what I'm saying. So we know what books do for us, and so what are the things maybe that people can, how they can contribute to your mission?
So we are happy to take volunteers. On our website, there is information about how to get involved as a volunteer, whether as a tutor or a book club participant. And then, of course, donations are always welcome as well, and that can be done through the website.
Very good. And what is the website, Jodi? Website address?
It's www.juvenilecourtbookclub.com, just all run together like that.
Very good.
And it is a .com, not a .org.
Right.
Although we are a 501c3.
Okay, very good. Yeah, that did throw me for just a little bit. Well, we're glad to have you on the show and just value what you're doing, taking literacy and literature into a setting where a lot of times there's not a lot to do, and I think sometimes that's the idea. But you're helping to maximize the time, use the time in a really good way. So really appreciate you being on, and hopefully you'll come back another time and join us.
That would be great. Thank you very much. I really enjoyed being here.
Okay, you've been listening to Jodi Cleesattle. She's the president of the Juvenile Court Book Club, and we're all on the Literacy for All radio show on WS Radio, the worldwide leader in Internet talk.